Are you tired of feeling like your stomach has its own agenda? Like the bloating, gas, or constant trips to the bathroom are running your life? Welcome to the Beyond Bloated podcast, the podcast where we tackle those frustrating gut issues head on, without strict diets or giving up your favorite foods. I'm Carly, a certified gut health coach who's been there, struggling with bloating that made me look 6 months pregnant, gut pain that kept me from enjoying meals, and fatigue so draining it felt impossible to get through the day. Now, I help women like you find freedom from those symptoms and take back control of their lives. Each week, we'll debunk gut health myths, dive into simple, actionable tips, and hear stories from women who've been exactly where you are. It's time to feel confident, energized, and bloat-free. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Beyond Bloated podcast, or welcome for the very first time. Have you ever heard the term PCOS? Maybe you've been diagnosed with it. Maybe you've seen it online and wondered if it could explain some of your symptoms. Or maybe this is your very first time hearing about it and you just love learning stuff. PCOS stands for polycystic ovary syndrome. It is a hormonal condition that's becoming increasingly common among women. But here's the good news. There are real, effective ways to manage PCOS symptoms and support hormone balance naturally. Today's guest, Kate Gregory, knows this firsthand. After navigating her own PCOS journey, she now helps other women do the same. Kate is a women's holistic hormone health practitioner who helps millennial women break free from burnout, balance their periods, and get their energy back without quick fixes. She takes a unique approach that blends mineral balancing, nervous system support, functional lab testing, and root cause nutrition so women can stop settling for normal lab results and finally feel like themselves again. She's also the creator of the Energy and Hormone Reset program and a big believer that true healing does not require hustling harder. It comes from slowing down, feeling safe, and deeply nourishing the body. When she's not teaching about adrenal fatigue or hormone health, you can usually find her outside with her 3 kids. In our conversation today, Kate shares her own story with PCOS, what PCOS actually is and what causes it, the surprising role minerals in gut health play in hormone balance, and simple steps you can start taking today to support your own hormones. So without further ado, let's give a big warm welcome to Kate Gregory. Thank you so much for joining us on the Beyond Bloated podcast today.
Thanks, Carly. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. And I always love the start of these episodes because I get to hear about your origin story. So please let us know what got you interested in gut health, PCOS, mineral balance, all the things that you're passionate about today.
Yeah, so I am now a women's holistic hormone health practitioner. I think my journey started like at birth, in a way, because I was born without a thyroid, actually. That played into my story later on, but ever since I got my period at like 15, it was very irregular, and that's typical for periods when you first start. But when I was in my 20s, I was dealing with very disruptive acne. It was especially along my jawline. It was so annoying. I mean, anyone who's experienced that, where it's just like every morning, you get up and there's a whole new set of whiteheads there to look you in the face and can't be covered, kind of a thing. As I was saying, in my 20s, I also, would go without a period for several months. And I went without a period for 8 or 9 months. And of course, I didn't really care that much. I wasn't trying to get pregnant or, I was like, great, I don't have to have a period. That was my perspective at the time. But the acne was something that really bothered me. So I went to a dermatologist, and I mean, literally 2 minutes. She spent 2 minutes in the room with me. She walked in and talked to me a little bit, looked at me for 30 seconds and said, okay, here's the cream that I'm going to prescribe to you. In my teenage years, I'd been to dermatologists, I'd taken antibiotics, I'd, dealt with acne in those ways, but I just, I knew myself a little bit better then. I knew a little bit more at least. And I was just like, I don't think a cream is going to do anything to this. Like, I've been trying to scrubbed the hell out of this for a long time and used Proactive and whatever. So I didn't take the cream, and later, got the kind of a soft diagnosis of like, you have all the earmarks of PCOS. That concerned me a little because, that can make it hard to get pregnant. And that was something that I wanted for my future. I started using cyclic progesterone. I did not take metformin at the time. I just wanted to deal with it differently. For the most part, things seemed okay. I still was pretty ignorant about my body, but I was taking progesterone, so it was like I was having a period, and I thought that I was. Fast forward, I got married, I got on birth control, and then when I was ready to have a baby, I got off birth control and I got pregnant. Then my acne got worse, especially like right as I was having my baby and for like the next year after that. And then after I weaned and I got off birth control again, because I got on birth control again after I had my baby, my period didn't come back again. And so my experience going to fertility endocrinologist and being completely dismissed, she was negligent looking at my labs, having all these fertility meds and things pushed on me very quickly, immediately. Again, like my gut feeling was like, this is not, I'm not just like medication deficient, like something's up and I need to figure it out. And I ended up figuring out that it was my thyroid medication that, just needed to be adjusted. But all of those experiences and then hearing the same, having that, I go into my midwife, her saying, I don't know what to do, maybe try birth control again, going to these different places and not getting any real answers, and then finding natural answers lit a fire under me. Now I have 3 kids without intervention. My skin is clearer than it's ever been. I have better energy, better digestion, less bloating, all of these other symptoms because I've changed the way that I live. And I believe that everyone deserves that chance and opportunity and education.
I love that for you. I love that you are now thriving and you didn't just accept what the doctors were pushing onto you. I love the term that you used. I'm not medication deficient
Yeah.
because it's so true. Like you go to the doctor and unless you are lucky and you get a real good one, they give you 5 minutes of time and it's more like, what's your problem? What medication can I give you to get you out of my hair? I've said this before. I don't know. I don't think they truly know what to do. So that's kind of what they've been taught. And it's unfortunately up to us to figure out what is going on in my body? How do I correct it? And sadly, most people don't have that education or they don't have the time or they are just trusting their doctors because like you should be able to trust your doctor. It's really sad that you can't. So I'm really glad that you pushed for answers, you figured it out, and now you're helping others do the same. That's my favorite thing about practitioners when they come out the other side and they're like, all right, how can I help everybody else do this? So today, our main topic is kind of PCOS. So could you kind of start us off by telling us what is PCOS and how could someone potentially develop that condition?
Great question. So to understand PCOS, we have to first understand ovulation. And I don't know, like I've listened to some of your episodes, but I don't know how in depth you've gotten about ovulation with your audience because I was in my late 20s before I understood this. I will explain it. So ovulation is the process of a follicle developing into an egg, and then certain hormones trigger the release of that. And then that egg goes and either it's fertilized sperm or it's not. When it's not, the corpus luteum, the follicle that's left over, kind of like the eggshell, you crack the egg yolk comes out, right? And the eggshell is left there and it produces progesterone. But after 2 weeks, like that's its lifespan if you don't get pregnant, and it dies, and then that triggers a drop in progesterone and a period. Okay, so the main event of any period, any cycle, is really ovulation. And then your bleed is really the fallout of that. PCOS is a condition where women are having very irregular periods or missing periods because of androgen dominance. And even though the name PCOS stands for polycystic ovarian syndrome. What a lot of people don't understand, including doctors, is that it has nothing to do with having cysts on your ovaries. What is called polycystic ovaries is really just a bunch of undeveloped follicles that haven't made it to that maturation process and are ready to be sent off. So imagine it like, you have a container of popcorn and it's full of all these kernels that haven't popped. And that's kind of what's happening. You just see it in the ovary. So it can't be diagnosed by ultrasound and it can't be ruled out by ultrasound. It's really about an imbalance in hormone that is keeping you from ovulating regularly. So it can be kind of circular because when we don't ovulate, we don't have enough progesterone, and that's going to counteract other, androgen hormones. I'm talking about testosterone, DHES, these more like male kind of hormones that we usually think of. Those are going unopposed. And so then we get things like facial hair, especially along the jawline. We start losing hair on top, or maybe we grow hair even like on our chest or back, places where women typically don't want hair. And then acne is also part of that picture because of that kind of unopposed androgen dominance. It can happen for lots of reasons, and we'll dive into why. But if you stop listening to the podcast right now, what I want you to know is that PCOS is a symptom, and it's not a diagnosis, in my opinion, even though I'm diagnosing you with this, right? For me, like even in this, as I started my business, I would often forget that like I had PCOS because I've let go of that diagnosis. Like I don't identify with it. And I think that a lot of times PCOS can feel like a really like damning and like scary diagnosis. Sometimes it's even diagnosed incorrectly. And then we feel like we're broken for the rest of our lives, when in reality, it's just a symptom of underlying imbalance that we can reverse. It's totally possible.
That's so important. I'm glad you brought that up. And that is the case for so many other conditions out there, like especially talking about gut health, IBS, not a real diagnosis. Food sensitivities, also a symptom, not a main issue that you have for the rest of your life, can be reversed. SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, also being caused by something else that's going on, can be reversed. So it's so important to remember that just because you are told you have PCOS or some other condition, almost always you can, at bare minimum, put that in remission so that you aren't suffering with symptoms. You are proof of that. I am proof of that in a different way. I never had PCOS, but I had a shit ton of other symptoms. But I'll tell you that you can reverse a lot of things with diet, lifestyle, some strategic supplementation. And I'm glad that you brought that up. I also learned about ovulation in my late 20s, which is hilarious because we are both women who ovulate. Why did nobody tell us this information? Like, honestly, I think in high school, the purpose of health class is to scare you shitless into getting pregnant. And it's like, don't get pregnant, don't have sex, you will get pregnant. And it didn't take until my like mid late 20s to be like, wait, I can actually only get pregnant like one week out of my menstrual cycle. And that was like mind blowing to me. Oh my gosh. So again, great point. And I'm glad you educated us on that because there's still probably people out there who don't know, and it's not their fault.
Yep.
It's not taught to us. It's not just widely talked about. Hey, how's your ovulation? Like it's taboo. So great point. Now I would love if you could kind of talk a little bit more about what causes PCOS.
Absolutely. So there are multiple causes of PCOS, but I'll kind of talk about them in order of prevalence. So one of the top reasons why women experience PCOS is insulin resistance. What that basically means is over time, due to our Western ultra-processed diets and diet culture and all of that, many of us consume a lot more sugar than our bodies can really handle. And insulin is the hormone that responds to that glucose or sugar spike to bring it into the cells to make use of it. But when we're always, skyrocketing up and down, that really puts a lot of strain on the body and on insulin. And we're using it so much, it's kind of like a rusty key. Like it's more difficult for insulin to do its job. So the body starts producing more and more and more insulin until eventually it could potentially bottom out, and that's diabetes, right? So it's kind of like a pre-diabetic state. And again, this is something we can change, right? It's not we're not beholden to that just because that's our current state. So insulin resistance, because it's very stressful to the body, because it, throws off that important hormone of insulin, it can deplete us of nutrients that we need. We're often nutrient depleted. And it can make our body feel unsafe to ovulate because our nervous systems are primed to like always be on the lookout for like safe conditions. And even though most of the time your ovulation is, you don't get pregnant, it's just a period, it's just a cycle, it's still scanning for, is it safe to get pregnant? Because if it's not safe to get pregnant, then the body will do something good for you and stop you from ovulating. So that's a very simplified reason. I think there are lots of reasons why insulin resistance causes that, but what's more important is understanding, well, I can change this, right? I can not cut out carbs and say we can't eat those at all anymore, but I can focus my diet more on fibrous vegetables and fruits, meat that has fat, protein in it, plenty of protein, and include carbs and, occasionally desserts, right? But how I eat them and in what quantities I eat them, read not less, but more, can really help me get off of that glucose roller coaster.
And I've done episodes in the past on blood sugar regulation and how insulin spiking and those blood sugar crashes and all of the things contribute to not just hormonal imbalances, but also bloating and gut issues and fatigue and moodiness and so many different symptoms. So not only is it important to balance your blood sugar levels for PCOS, but literally for a million other reasons. So
Yeah.
it's a very important topic, and I'll link that in the show notes too if people want to go learn more about specifically blood sugar regulation, since we don't have time to cover everything today. Where does the gut come into play with mineral balance, PCOS, blood sugar? Because I know you focus on hormone and gut health. So obviously there is a connection there. Can you give us a bit of an explanation?
It feels like a ball of yarn, like in the sense that like everything's so intertwined that it's like it's almost hard to explain it linearly sometimes. But another reason for hormonal acne is often gut health, right? We could talk about that. We could have an entire episode about that. But another thing, when we have like leaky gut or increased gut permeability, it's often paired with ultra processed diet as well. We're not absorbing the nutrients, the minerals in particular, that we need in order to support ovulation. So if we're both not eating foods rich in magnesium, but also not absorbing them, magnesium is so important for hormone production, like progesterone, that comes from healthy eggs and ovulation. So if what we're eating is causing a lot of inflammation, or if our gut lining is impaired and therefore we're getting a lot of inflammation as well, then again, our body doesn't feel safe to ovulate and it doesn't have the ingredients that it needs to have steady and regular ovulation. So another thing that I do in my program is I do hair tissue mineral analysis because these minerals are difficult, if not impossible, to test in the blood, a lot of them. And we can really get a sense for where your magnesium levels are at, where your potassium levels, your sodium, your calcium, whether you have other toxic elements.
Absolutely. And the point is that you cannot balance your hormones without improving your gut health and vice versa. A lot of people, I think, find or believe that I have terrible periods or have mood swings, like things that they kind of believe are hormone related. Like my hormones are messed up. I need to do very targeted hormonal work, but the gut kind of gets left out of it. Your hormones are metabolized in your gut. Like there is a lot of connection there. So to just disregard one and just focus solely on the other, like you're not going to get very far. So I assume in your practice, like you do a combination of like, we're working on improving gut health, but we're also working on improving your hormone health. And that kind of comes together to solve the problem, essentially. Am I right?
Yes, well, how I see it and how I explain it is that hormones are messengers. So, they are the like alarm bells that give us a heads up of, hey, something else is going on under the surface that I can't see. And so in that way, my perspective again is that women have this unfair advantage over our male counterparts because we have a feedback loop every month telling us how things are going. If your period is painless, easy, not too heavy or too light, if it's fairly regular, within that 24 to 35-day cycle, if your luteal phase is longer than 12 days, all of these things, how you feel, if your PMS is not out of control, if your acne isn't also like, so, sometimes we're going to get some zits sometimes, right? Like it's just life. But if you have all of that, that's telling you a lot about what's going on underneath. Now, the alternative is, basically don't shoot the messenger, right? So a lot of doctors, you go in and you're like, my period is so horrible, or it's so irregular, or whatever, it's knocking me out. And the doctor says, well, let's just shoot the messenger. Like, here's the birth control pill. Let's make it shut up. Like, that's all it's doing. Like, we're just going to put duct tape or shoot, that's more violent, but like, we're going to silence the thing that's just here to tell you what's up. And so going to the gut, going to the minerals, looking at your blood sugar and your insulin and your stress response, all of these things and more. Those are where we go to find out, well, what's really the problem. And when we address those, the hormones level out and they feel great and they do their job, which is also to grow our brains, our muscles, our bones, to give us energy and all these amazing things to make us fertile.
Hey everyone, Carly here. If you are tired of feeling bloated and uncomfortable, which I know you are, I have something that can really help. My free ultimate guide to bloat busting. I've been there myself, and I know how frustrating it is to try super restrictive diets and expensive supplements without getting results. If those methods were going to work, they would have worked by now. That's why I created this guide to offer you a different approach. In the Ultimate Guide to Bloat Busting, you'll learn techniques to listen to your body and eat with intention, avoiding overeating and choosing foods that truly benefit you, tips for proper hydration to support digestion and reduce bloating, a guide to delicious foods that promote a healthy gut and how to easily incorporate them into your meals, and effective methods to manage stress, which plays a huge role in gut health. These simple, practical strategies can make a big difference in your daily life, helping you feel lighter, more energized, and comfortable in your own skin. Ready to ditch the bloat without strict diets or costly supplements? Download your free copy today at beyondbloated.com/ultimate-guide and start your journey to a bloat-free life. Now, let's get back to it. Yeah, it's true that our cycles are often villainized, and it's like, ugh, I hate getting my period. It's the worst, it's a burden. And it can be, sure. But at the same time, as you said, it's a really good indicator of your health. I know at the beginning of my gut health journey, my period was horrible. In high school, I had so much pain. I would be like crying. I would go home from school. And then I went on birth control for 10 years. Oops. I didn't know that you're not supposed to do that. And then I learned all about birth control, gut health, hormone imbalances, estrogen dominance, all the things. And I was like, I don't want to be on this anymore. So I pulled myself off and I was nervous because my period before that was not good. But at this point, I had been working on my gut health for like 4 years or so. So I came off birth control and nothing bad happened. My periods are so regular, so light, so painless. It truly does not disrupt my month in any way. And that is such a good sign to me. Like it was very relieving to be like, wow, all the work that I have done to improve my gut health has also balanced out my hormones enough that now my periods are sweet, like that's the dream. Another like really great way to see what's going on with you is by looking at your poop. That's another thing that our bodies will show us, what's coming out and is it solid? Is it loose? How frequent? How difficult is it to pass? The color, the texture, like there's so many things that our body does for us to show us like, hey, something ain't right. Let's do something about it. It's up to us to pay attention and actually start to correct those issues. So, if someone is struggling with horrible periods or moodiness, they're fatigued, they have acne, all the things that we've kind of talked about today, what would be the first step or two that you would suggest they take to start moving things in the right direction?
Great question. So I will note that like painful periods isn't typically like kind of a characteristic of PCOS, but you could have both, right? You could have, you're often in that depleted state. So the first thing, which I already kind of talked about, would be to start eating a savory protein breakfast and start your blood sugar journey, and that means including more a variety of foods, but savory in particular, not just like, oh, yogurt that has like less sugar. I'm not saying we can't eat that ever, but I want you to start training your body to crave more of that savory food and less of that glucose, because then we can kind of get off of that roller coaster of I need to eat every 90 minutes, or I feel dizzy, or I get cranky. You can tell that your blood sugar is starting to balance out when you can easily go about 3 hours between meals because you ate 20 grams of protein that morning and it was savory protein and you didn't load up on sugar, because that will also help you make better decisions throughout the day and crave more of this food that's like deeply nourishing to you. I would say that that's the first thing I would always tell people do is to look to food and not just like a bunch of hormone gummies that are sold to you, because you really can't out supplement a bad diet. And I'm sure you would agree with that sentiment. If they're already doing that, if their blood markers do indicate insulin resistance, so their HbA1c is above 5.4, their fasting glucose and insulin are high, that would be a great indication for a supplement like myo-inositol and D-chiro-inositol at a 41 ratio. So that's a great one to start as you also, fix your diet and things like that. And then just doing things to reduce inflammation overall, which you talk about at length, limiting sugar, limiting alcohol. And I can't look past the like things for me as a holistic practitioner that I teach every day is that it's not just the food that's inflammatory to you. It's also your critical thoughts of yourself. It's your avoidance of your emotions and of hard conversations and of anger that you hold in and never express or never, find a way to move through. What I think is interesting about PCOS is that we're talking about your body is more into this like male hormone pattern rather than the female hormone pattern. And I see this a lot, that because of the society that we live in, that's, kind of basically pattern after male rhythms and expectations. And, that's who's controlled a lot of what we know and what we learn from books and whatever, is that a lot of women are trying to live like men. We're trying to follow advice that works for men. Intermittent fasting, cold plunges, working, the 8-hour day, the same way all month long, and working out like a man. All of these things, right? To me, it seems natural that our body would try to do that and try to stop ovulating, stop being womanly, but to embrace our strengths as women and time periods of rest and receiving and, nourishing ourselves, like welcoming more body fat percentage, not putting ourselves in ice baths, not doing these things that are really inflammatory to our nervous system. Maybe that wasn't the simple the simple tip that you wanted, but balance your blood sugar and lean into softness for my PCOS girlies. Those are my two where I would start.
Perfect. And I think that's a great answer because we have the beginner tip, if you aren't eating to regulate blood sugar, start there. If you're already doing that, let's look down the line. What else might be going on there? And I love that point that you made about the men versus women scenario because I've heard it before too. Like, we are not small men. Our hormones are different, our lifestyles are different, like we are different. So we do need to live a little different, and that's totally fine. Like you said, it's a strength to be a woman. So embrace it and just take care of you as a woman. I also know you have a couple of resources for us if anyone is looking to dive a little deeper and get started on their hormone balancing journey. So could you share those with us as well?
Yeah, for sure. So, number one is a acne healing from the inside out guidebook. So I'm going to talk about more in depth all of the sources and, all of my recommendations for whichever thing is driving your acne so you can have clearer skin. I'm also going to talk about skincare because we've been really doing it backwards, the conventional way, stripping away that skin microbiome and how we can work with our skin and not against it. So if acne is a major thing for you, I'm going to provide a code BEYOND for 30% off of that offer, as well as a PCOS masterclass. So pick your poison or grab both. But I'm going to be really diving into my protocols and how I've helped my clients and myself reverse PCOS, get pregnant, clear their skin, and just kind of lay that diagnosis to rest and feel much better. So same code BEYOND for 30% of one of those courses. Thank you so
Amazing.
much, Carly, for inviting me.
Thank you so much for joining me, sharing all of your wisdom, those discount codes. I will link all of that information in the show notes. I know you're also on Instagram, so I will link your handle there. Do you want to just let us know what it is real quick?
Yes, that's the best place to find me is Queen Bee Hormone Health is my Instagram handle. So send me a message if you have a question. I love to chat.
Perfect. I'll link that as well. All the things we've talked about so they can find it in the show notes. I encourage everyone to bare minimum follow Kate on Instagram. If you're looking for free advice, she is giving it there. If you're looking to dive a little deeper, check out one of her courses. You're going to get 30% off, which is a steal. She has been through it herself. She helps women get there as well, which I love. So thank you so much, Kate, for sharing all this with us today. It has been a pleasure.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Did you learn something new and useful today? If the answer is a big, resounding hell yeah, do me a favor. Subscribe to this podcast. Even better, toss a rating in there too. It helps more bloated babes discover this show and lets me keep bringing you this free, gut-loving content every single week. And hey, don't be greedy. Share this episode with your bestie who's always unbuttoning her pants after dinner. She will love you even more for it. Thanks for hanging out with me and showing your gut some love. Keep on putting what you learn into practice and you will be bloat free in no time. Catch you in the next one. Bye.